So Xiaomi has finally launched the Xiaomi 12 Lite here at Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And yes, we're pretty excited about the smartphone. It's a mid-range smartphone that packs a Snapdragon 778G 5G chipset, a 120Hz AMOLED display, and of course, a 108 megapixel main camera. That is a pretty exciting specs, right? But before we get down to the review of the smartphone, let me introduce myself first. I'm Jam of JamOnline.ph, and today we're gonna review the latest smartphone from Xiaomi, the Xiaomi 12 Lite. The Xiaomi 12 Lite is different from its bigger brother that we have reviewed before, the Xiaomi 12 Pro, but we still got here a pretty similar design. Not as similar as the 12 Pro. We got here a flat frame. It's a polycarbonate frame. It's not as premium as the one on the 12 Pro, and also it's flat, but this one comes with a still solid build, maybe thanks to the glass back of the smartphone. Holding it might not be the most ergonomic one because, again, it comes with a flat frame, so I highly suggest that you use the included jelly case on the smartphone. Again, the back of the smartphone resembles the Xiaomi 12 Pro because of the camera layout. It might have a similar camera layout but does have different lenses compared to the 12 Pro. But of course, we're going to talk about that later. The camera layout and also the back design of the smartphone, which is a matte glass, gives a premium and solid vibe on the smartphone. The camera layout, it's not that thick compared to the 12 Pro, so it's a plus for me. And again, once you use the case, you wouldn't actually notice the bulge on the camera module of the smartphone. The camera layout is just fine, it's working for me, and does look premium and clean. As for the buttons, the Xiaomi 12 Lite comes with a sleep-wake button on the right side, and on top of it is the power button. And of course, at the top of the smartphone is the IR blaster that you can use using Mi Remote, that of course you can control your appliances and other devices that supports IR blaster or infrared. Below is where you can find the USB-C port that supports 67 watts of charging, and of course there's the speaker grill and also the card tray. Unfortunately, for the fans of 3.5mm headphone jack, there's none in here, so you have to rely on a dongle to use your wired headphones on the Xiaomi 12 Lite. When it comes to the speaker of the Xiaomi 12 Lite, it's actually pretty average. Watching movies on this one, playing games, it will do just fine. It's not great, and it's not bad either. But the display of the smartphone, that one is pretty good. We got here a 6.55-inch Full HD Plus AMOLED display. It's a 10-bit display. That's why the colors are really good on this one. It's actually pretty sharp and the colors are on point. There's a 120Hz refresh rate on the smartphone, but unfortunately, it's not a dynamic or an adaptive refresh rate. So this one, you have to rely on 60Hz or 120Hz. You need to pick between the two. So it's either the slower 60Hz but can save you more battery, or the 120Hz that is smoother but consumes more battery. But for me, I didn't notice the change in the battery when I was using the 120Hz refresh rate, so I highly suggest that you use that one instead to give you a fresher and better experience on the smartphone. Overall, the quality of the Xiaomi 12 Lite's display is pretty amazing. The colors are great, it's vivid, and we got here a faster refresh rate. It might not be the perfect display even for its price range, but this one will do great, especially when you're using it outside, as this one is bright already, and again, the colors are vivid on this one. Now, for the battery. The smartphone comes with a 4300 mAh of battery. I know, that's not that exciting, but in our test of PC Mark Work 2.0 battery test, I was able to get 14 hours and 32 minutes, which is pretty decent for a smartphone with this battery and specifications and hardware. That's not the longest one that we have seen on a mid-range smartphone with these specifications, but the one that we got is still pretty good. Now, for the software of the Xiaomi 12 Lite. It comes with a MIUI 3.0.3, and that is based on Android 12. Everything was smooth and pleasant to the eyes thanks to the 120Hz refresh rate. And of course, the colors, the UI is just well made on the MIUI 13. I actually love MIUI 13 as this one is smooth and better compared to the previous generation. There are some pre-installed applications, of course, and most of them are useful. And if you don't find it useful, I don't think that it would consume that much storage on the smartphone. Speaking of storage, I got here the 128 gigs of internal storage, and so far I didn't had any problems with my applications and games on this one. If you're planning to use microSD, unfortunately no microSD card slot on the smartphone, but of course most of the people who are using their smartphones that are, you know, not too heavy wouldn't have any problems with 128 gigs of storage. When it comes to performance, again, there's the Qualcomm Snapdragon 778G 5G chipset inside, along with 8 gigs of RAM. You can also expand its RAM by 3 gigs, which is taking some memory from the internal storage of the smartphone. And honestly, this one is pretty good. Despite having a months-old Snapdragon 778G 5G chipset, again, this one is out in the market for a while, but this one is still competitive. A lot of smartphone chipsets that are out in a recent while is still way below Snapdragon 778G 5G. And what I like about 778G 5G chipset is that not only we're getting here a 5G speeds, thanks to the 5G connectivity of the smartphone, we're also getting here a more mature performance, a powerful performance as well, because 778G is out for a while. A lot of games and applications are already optimized for the chipset, and again, it's powerful enough for most casual users. So if you're just using the smartphone casually, taking photos, playing some light games, casual games, actually even playing heavy games wouldn't be a problem on the smartphone. If you're curious about the benchmarks, check out some of the benchmarks that I took using the smartphone. And when it comes to gaming, I actually tried a lot of games. And of course, Genshin Impact being one of the most demanding Android titles out there in the market, I was able to play the game at medium settings at 60 frames per second. But of course, it can reach up to that level, but it fluctuates. So I still suggest that you set it at the lowest settings to get a higher frame rate on the smartphone. And if you want, set it at max of 45 FPS. Other games would do great on the smartphone, including Pubg Mobile, in where I was able to play the game at extreme frame rates, which is 60 frames per second at smooth graphics settings. Having a better FPS or frame rates on FPS games would give you a better experience and better performance when it comes to gaming. I actually prefer that, having a better FPS rather than better graphics on FPS games, as I can respond faster and kill my enemies ahead of them as well. I'm not that good at PUBG. For the camera of the smartphone, we got here 108 megapixel main camera along with an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera and also a 2 megapixel macro camera. The Xiaomi 12 Lite also comes with a 32 megapixel selfie camera. And as for the rear camera of the smartphone, it's actually pretty great. Most of the shots that I took, especially at decent lighting conditions, gives me a vivid colors, sharp photos, and an on-point and accurate colors. I actually like the camera of this one thanks to the Samsung HM2 sensor, which was also used by some mid-range or even flagship smartphones in the market right now. As for the 32 megapixel selfie camera, I find it just fine. Just average, just fine for posting on social media, but it's definitely not on the same level as other flagship smartphones or even at the higher mid-range smartphones. But again, it will do just fine. At night, I noticed that the smartphone's camera is a little bit on the darker side. It's not that bad. We still got here the details, but it's still darker. But nonetheless, the camera of the smartphone is still pretty great at its price range. The Xiaomi 12 Lite is a very decent smartphone. I actually like the feel of the smartphone, as we got here a glass back. Despite having a polycarbonate frame, it does feel solid to hold, and the vibe of the smartphone is really premium. As for the camera, it's very decent, and the performance of the smartphone is also good as well, despite, you know, the 778G 5G chipset out in the market for a while. The price of the Xiaomi 12 Lite is in a tight spot because the smartphone is priced at 20,999 pesos. A lot of smartphone with a Snapdragon 778G 5G chipset is way below or just a little bit higher at that price range. But the redeeming factor with the Xiaomi 12 Lite is its really good camera. the great display, and of course, a pretty good battery life. So that's something that you should consider with the Xiaomi 12 Lite. But of course, if you want something better, if you want a faster and better experience, you could go for the 12 and the 12 Pro, which has, of course, a faster processor inside. Another thing to like is the colors. There's the light green and the light pink, which are not that common. And then, of course, there's the black. So, we got here some personality on the smartphone. The light green, the light pink is for the people who wants more color on their smartphones. And of course, the black one is very generic and common to most smartphones in the market. But yeah, I guess that's it for the Xiaomi 12 Lite. So if you like our review of the smartphone, be sure to give us a thumbs up. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and be sure to click that subscribe button along with that bell button to get notified of our latest videos here in my YouTube channel. So once again, I am JamJamOnline.ph. Thank you for watching and see you guys again in my next video.